I just finished reading a book about writers and drinking, which surprises me. The fact that I was reading it, I mean, not that writers drink, because I don't picture myself being interested in the slightest in either topic. Since the book was well written and also about other things like travel and therefore locations, it turned out that I made it through with very little loss or damage. The parts about the drinking were disturbing. This wasn't about chaps doing a spot of social drinking. This was about people getting seriously hammered day after day, every day, for years. We're talking about drunks, liver damage, and blackouts. If this is happening now, that our finest writers are alcoholics, I'm not aware of it. A college not far from where I live was just placed third on a list of party schools in America, and in the past couple of years, 2 of its students have died from binge drinking, alcohol poisoning. So people do continue to overindulge, but a young person overdoing it, even fatally, is not the same thing as a person, a writer, chronically drinking themselves into a stupor. It's true that during the 20th century a slew of the finest American male writers were hell-bent on drinking themselves into oblivion, some supplementing the booze with pills. Why this is so, I don't know. Prohibition, war, the Great Depression, it does seem quite amazing that so many were so similarly afflicted. But then, maybe painters, plumbers, priests, and politicians were also getting sauced, just not so publicly. I'm not sure you can ask why writers would do this, or I should say, you can ask the question, but I don't know if there is a simple answer. The one that comes first to mind is that these were sensitive people, and living existence was painful for them. Exactly why, I don't know, and they were drinking to dull the pain. Many of these people had friends and family, and you might think that they would act as some support, but it was not enough apparently, and in some cases those very relationships were the source of extreme discontent. When I think about a life that is shattered and intensely painful, so much so that a person would drink to escape it, or take their own life as a permanent solution, I think about the nurture factors that may have led to this juncture, and I think about people getting lost, having taken a series of wrong turns to the point where when they look at themselves they no longer know who they are, or if they know, can no longer bear to be that person. For a writer especially, I think this would be a destructive discovery and a terrible fate. All of the 6 men in this book were in that horrible situation. William Faulkner was another highly esteemed 20th century American male writer who was, I'm pretty certain, no stranger to the bottle. Sometimes when his prose would really take wing and fly off the page, some readers would cluck their tongues and say, "Old Bill must have been in his cups when he wrote this. That's the bourbon talking." I find reading Faulkner very demanding and not always enjoyable. My favorite little bit of his work is a short story called That Evening Sun, a bleak but compelling tale. The rest of his books, the novels, they're too much for me. He is the subject of one story about a writer having nothing to do with drink that I found completely engaging. We are told that he ran an ascetic household down there in Mississippi. He would not allow anyone in the home to have a radio, and when television came along, it was similarly banned. I think when one daughter threatened outright rebellion, she was allowed to have a record player, but I'm guessing that the volume was sternly controlled. Anyway, it is said that in the last year of his life, William Faulkner would slip out of his house one night a week, at the very same time every week, would walk over to a neighbor's house and knock softly on the door, be admitted, enter, sit down, and watch an episode of Car 54, Where Are You? Yes, the author of Absalom, Absalom, Go Down Moses, and As I Lay Dying, there he is, laughing his ass off over Tootie and Muldoon, Schnauzer's wife, throwing open the window and shouting, "My husband is a nut. I am married to a nut." and the surreptitious author would laugh and laugh and then return quietly to his home. I make no specific interpretation, but I can live with that.